Okay, so welcome to the Node.js Community Technical Steering Committee meeting for April 24th, 2019. We'll follow the agenda as posted in the issue. So first of all, does anybody have any announcements that they'd like to share? Okay, if there's no announcements, then we'll move on to the issues tagged in for the agenda. The first one is in Node.js. It's 1718. I think, Shocker, you've been involved in some of the discussions there. Would you like to talk to that one?
Yes, I can talk about it. As you can see, the issues are already closed. So the thing is that there has been a security vulnerability in Node.tar that is managed by NPM. It was fixed in version 4 of Node.tar, like version 4 point something, like only the branch that is corresponding to version 4. But it wasn't fixed in the branch that Node.js used. So it wasn't fixed in Node.tar version 2 branch. And an update from version 2 to version 4 was a similar measure for Node.js. So to get the update that Node.tar that does not have that vulnerability, one has to install a similar measure update of Node.js right now. The Node.js 4 release happened after the issue has been tagged to the agenda. So at this point, pretty much everything that could be done on Node.js side is already done. So if someone wants Node.js 3 to get an update, to get a fix, it would have to happen on Node.tar side. So Node.tar version 2 should get a patch release that fixes that vulnerability in Node.tar. Isaac said that he's open to accepting such pull request for Node.tar version 2. So if anyone is willing to take a look at Node.tar version 2, I can link an issue for that. Give me a second. Another thing is that that vulnerability does not actually apply to Node.js as far as I know. Like, it's essentially a false positive report because the Node.tar version is insecure, but that insecurity does not bring anything exploitable to Node.js as far as I know.
So just to clarify, the issue that was linked here is about the proposal for Node.js 3.8.1, and it says it has upgrade to tar v3 in it.
That was not possible because it is a similar measure upgrade. It dropped support for some Node.js versions that Node.js version 3 still supported, that would have broken a significant number of packages supporting older Node versions, like older than version 4.
Okay, I see some comments in the issue.
Okay. I can share a link to Node.tar issue. Give me a second. Also, there was a recent comment in Node.tar issue telling that Node.tar version 2 was not actually affected by that security vulnerability. So it says that this was all about nothing, but I have not verified it yet, and that if anyone could verify that, it would be great. That would mean that the vulnerability database could actually be updated if Node.js version 2 is not affected. And that would also solve everything. So
I think that, like, it sounds like the issue itself has been dealt with, and there's maybe past. The main reason I think it was added to the TSC agenda was concern over lack of progress. So I wonder if that's something we should talk about at all. Like, is there a concern that, we need more? I don't know what actually to, specifically to do about that. But is it something that we need to put some focus on in terms of getting more people involved in Node.js, or are we comfortable that it's only very rarely going to need an update and Rod's got a handle on that?
At Node.js side, everything has already been dealt with, and there is not anything much actionable in Node.js itself, as far as I know. So if anyone who wants to fix things in the ecosystem, they would have to take a look at Node.tar.
Right. So I think that makes sense. It was tagged for the TSC agenda because we'd waited for a long, an update on Node.js itself for a long time.
Yes.
So for this issue, everything's dealt with. The question is, is there anything else the TSC should be thinking about in terms of the other issue of, well, is Node.js as a key component? Do we have enough people involved, enough attention on it, that kind of stuff? I don't know if anybody has any thoughts on that front.
I think Rod addressed this in one of the comments. I'm trying to dig it up so I can post it in the issue. But Node.js is maintained. It's just it's very delicate to publish it. So if anything goes wrong, it can break a huge swath of the ecosystem.
Yeah,
We're a little bit touchy with it. I'm trying to see how long it took for the issue to be closed. It seemed like it was under a couple weeks, which seems not unreasonable, particularly given that the security issue didn't sound like it actually applied.
Yeah, if it's only a few weeks, I mean, yes, I agree. I had the sense of reading through it that it had been open longer, but
I think the tone might have given that impression, but it doesn't look to me like it was open that long. How long was this issue open before?
12 days.
Yeah, so that's not particularly long. Okay, so it doesn't sound like there's any concern in terms of that front, and that's, I think, the only thing that's left for us to talk about. So I suggest we move on unless there's any other things people want to add to the discussion.
And also, once again, I think that this was a false positive, like just the functionality that was exploitable in Node.tar wasn't actually dangerous in Node.js because Node.js downloads specific releases, and those are coded releases. So if anyone was in position to exploit Node.js through this vulnerability, they were in position to just ship malicious code in the same package, as far as I know.
Okay. Any other things to add before we move to the next issue? Okay, if not, let's move on to it's issue 27097, typing with spawn is broken in Node 11.12. Let me just see who added it to the agenda here.
I can talk about that.
Okay, go ahead.
So basically, this was a problem with the piping. 18016 PR fixed the problem of type A pipe B, where A and B are child process of parent node, and A's output was split between the parent node and B. That's what was fixed by 18016. But then it introduced another class of issue of type A plus B pipe into C. I wasn't able to get out of that. I was not able to find a way out which will fix both the issues. And the OP was pressing for revert because technically it's a regression. I wasn't really convinced. And because Node 12 was looming, that's when I added the TSC agenda. But Anna has come up with a comprehensive fix which will address both the class of problems. So I actually removed the TSC agenda at the moment. So it's no more a concern. Anna, you want to add anything on top of that?
Yeah, no, I think the issue is resolved at this point. I was only added to the agenda in order to raise awareness, and yeah, I don't think there's anything to do for us here.
Okay.
Maybe review the PR, but you know.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
I mean, to be clear, I think that the use case is, at least on a technical level, the way our streams work, slightly broken. Like, I guess in theory, Mateo has one of these things where you can like split a stream, is kind of like more technically correct, but I don't know that we should follow along that specific, especially when we haven't been for so long. There's so much code around, and since we can fix it without doing that.
Okay, so if we have nothing else to discuss on that one, should we move on to the next issue? Any objections to moving on to the next issue? Okay, so the next one we had is a CFP review process. So we have Sarah here today to sort of tell us a little bit about that, and I think ask for volunteers. So Sarah, take it away.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for having me on today. I've been working on the Node project for since it actually came into the Linux Foundation. So we're making a couple of changes this year to the CFP review process, though, that we wanted to share and try to get more community engagement around. One thing, we did have a CFP review committee last year. We're hoping to make it even bigger this year. And obviously we're broadening it to include the JSF projects that are now part of the OpenJS Foundation. But I wanted to make sure that the TSC members and the technical community knows that there's an open invitation right now to participate in that CFP process. And anyone who wants to volunteer, there is an issue open on GitHub under the OpenJS repo where I'm sort of collecting volunteer names.
You know the number off the top of your head? I'll add it in.
Yeah, let me go back. It is, hold on, just type it. It's number 148.
Okay.
So that's definitely one sort of opportunity for people to get involved. And I also in that issue have posted sort of a summary of the CFP review process with a couple of the key dates so that you have a sense for when, the time commitment would sort of peak and when you would need to be engaged in terms of reviewing and providing feedback. The review committee timeframe will roughly be around Friday, June 17th through Wednesday, July 31st, because we're trying to get CFP notifications out by the 31st. And then the other change that we're making this year is we're having 2 co-chairs for the events. And the responsibility for the co-chairs will be essentially to take all the input from the review committee and provide their own input, of course, and be the final decision makers around the actual talks and speakers that get accepted to the event. And this year, sort of the way we provided, the way we've sought out those 2 co-chairs is talking to several people within the foundation as well as within the community, and just trying to get sort of 2 people that we thought would provide balance and reflect Node as well as some of the other projects, and sort of be up for that role and all that it might entail. And so Tracy Hines has agreed to serve as one of the co-chairs, and then the other co-chair, definitely with recommendations from a lot of the JSF community people as well as Jory, is Christian Broman. So those 2 people have volunteered to serve as the co-chairs this year. But again, there's heavy input and from the actual CFP review committee. So we're really hoping that it has sort of community sort of endorsement and reflects community's interests all along the way. But I don't know if anyone has questions or suggestions or ideas that they'd like to share. Or if anyone wants to volunteer too, feel free to, raise your hand too.
Yeah, I guess
some of you already have, so thank you.
So if you wanna participate, it's just add your comment in 148.
Yep.
And if you have any questions, I guess you can also post them that issue in terms of. I mean, it sounds like the experience last year. It was basically there's call for papers went out. There was I think Sarah's already shared the text for what's going to go out.
Yep.
Once the things came in, the people who were on the review board helped look at them, rank them, and then from that, I think the co-chairs will probably end up looking at that feedback to figure out which ones get in.
Exactly.
Is like that process outlined anywhere right now that we can add as a link as well?
In that issue 148, I do have a link to a Google Doc that documents this new sort of process and some of the changes and feedback we received and some of the key dates.
Okay.
So you'll find that Google Doc there. And we are going to put out, I don't know if people have seen, some of the members here might also be on the ComCom or involved at the board level in various positions, but there's been discussion to potentially change the name of the conference. So once that is determined, we're going to publish the actual CFP, and then we're going to put a blog post together as well that's going to talk about the larger CFP review process and announce our two co-chairs and sort of talk about what's been changed, what's changing this year. And if people are curious about the name change discussion, I can summarize that too, but if everyone's familiar with it, I don't want to take time.
I think that would be worthwhile.
Okay, great. I think there was some confusion that it was there was some concern that it was a awkward name, long name. I think not, for various reasons. I guess there had been input that then people did not like the Node plus, JS interactive name that we came to last year. So there's been two suggestions that were sort of crowdsourced from the ComCom and I guess some of the foundation staff, as well as some of the board members. And the two options that the board is going to discuss, the actual OpenJS board is going to discuss, are this conf and then also new conf. And these were names that sort of bubbled to the top when the ComCom sort of put these names out there, along with another, maybe 3 or 4 other suggestions that were in the mix. But those were the two that rose to the top. And when we said new conf, I think it would be new conf, and then each year it would be like new conf 2019 or new conf 2020, et cetera. But I don't know if people have thoughts, good, bad, or indifferent, and nothing's been decided yet. So just wanted to make that clear too.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the reason that we pushed to still have it, I mean, I don't recall exactly how the discussions for naming went last year, but there hasn't really been like, I mean, Node Interactive was kind of like the North American conference for like large scale Node, and like the Node Collaborator Summit was always attached to it. And it already kind of like lost that identity largely last year. Even if the name changed back, a lot of the talks were, well, there was very few Node related talks, which was kind of very disappointing. And honestly, I think this does that even more. It's pretty unclear to me that it's even a JavaScript conference with either of those names, let alone a conference that would have anything to do with Node whatsoever.
Yeah. I will definitely pass that along. Yeah, I'll pass that along.
So if I can add to that a little bit, I think that Jeremiah is onto something, although to be honest, Jeremiah, I'm not 100% on board with the read. I think that it's important that the name reflect the content that we're having to some extent. whether or not that's just Node centric, but as someone who, you know, has helped drive the sponsorship over at Google and getting a lot of people on board. We want to have a lot of people come to this conference. Well, something like ThisConf is a fun name. I don't know how I convince my management to give us $50,000 to sponsor ThisConf. If it was the OpenJS Foundation ThisConf, I think a good comparison would be like Google has a big event called Next, and Microsoft has a big event. I forget the name of the Microsoft one. IBM has like Think. Like there's a whole bunch of these like one name ones that like without the name of the organization is attached to it, they are similarly like kind of, it's maybe a little harsh, but like meaningless names by themselves. But something like ThisConf, if it was like OpenJS this, that I think is much stronger and could be, maybe it should be global this, but that's a whole, that's a whole other thing. But I think it would be important, and I think that's maybe the kernel of what Jeremiah was getting at is you need to maintain, in my personal opinion, some sort of what is this all about in there? Because if all that I have when I'm selling this to engineers and to upper management is the name, that's the first thing they're going to see. That name needs to say everything.
Yeah, it's not an easy thing. Yeah, no, that's good feedback though.
Yeah, at the very least, it should say JS at some point in the name, right?
I guess, you know, the other question I would throw out here is, did the other people in the call, have you seen the discussion about the name? Has it been visible enough? Or is it that we need an issue somewhere where there can be more discussion? I'm just wondering.
It sounds like there's probably an issue somewhere in the ComCom repo or something. But I mean, we get too many notifications to necessarily hear about that.
Right. Yeah, there has been some discussion at the ComCom level, and then there was actually board level discussion around a possible name change several months ago too. And Miles, I don't know if you were involved in some of those discussions. I wasn't involved in all of those. So I think people have questioned if this Node plus JS Interactive should stick, if it worked, you know, but.
I have not heard anything directly from the board except for a reaction to this request. I believe, but I could be mistaken, that the only place where I've heard this coming from is from the community committee with this request at the moment. It doesn't mean it's not worth digging into and exploring. I can dig into some of the other merits there separately, but I had not heard this from other groups personally.
Okay, is there an issue in the ComCom?
There is, it isn't, I'd have to go, I don't know the issue number off the top of my head, but it came up in 2 different ComCom meetings, so there is documentation of it, yes.
Right, but if you know.
But not a specific issue, no.
Exactly, like if it was discussed in the ComCom meeting, that doesn't necessarily give any visibility to the broader project or the TSC. So I think, you know, judging by some of the reactions, it would be good to get an actual issue open that people can comment in and have a more open discussion, or maybe, you know, I guess it's either that where it's fully public, or maybe an email chain that includes both groups, just to make sure we've got all the feedback.
Yeah, and I can also look back. I can look back at notes and from previous board meetings, but I was told that it had been discussed at one point.
I think the concept has been, but I think you're going to get a lot of feedback on specific name. Like once you go from the concept of changing it to a specific name, then it's a whole different kind of feedback. So. Right.
No, absolutely. And I think at the time when the board discussed it, they decided not to change it. Like I think for various reasons they decided, but here we are. Okay, so I'll sort of take that feedback back to the foundation staff, and we can decide, should this be more open discussion on the mailing list or in a public issue, and at what level. And I know that there is sort of the timely factor in that we are trying to get the CFP published, somewhat soon, given that, the event's in December, but these things start early, as we know.
Yep, but I
think that one thing that's worth throwing out there, we have a board meeting coming up either this week or next week. There's some uncertainty on the exact date.
Yeah.
But I think that unless we have like really clear support about like A, what's the new name, and that B, we have like really clear consensus, it's already April and we want to do this event in like a couple months. We did a change like in the last minute last time, so obviously we can do this, but we have so many more stakeholders now.
Right.
To me, it seems like perhaps something we should iterate on next year. And it does not seem, it seems to me of higher priority to get our CFP out there, to start locking down sponsorships, to get the information out there so people even show up to the event, than kind of going back and forth on the name right now. I think we'll do more damage potentially by dragging this out.
Yeah, I agree.
That would be my take as well. Like either we should decide it's okay to delay for a month, or just stick with what we have, right?
And to be really clear, and like obviously we'd need to have consensus at the TSC for me to make a bold claim like this, but my gut would be to object at the board to landing, to extending this out a month. I don't think that it's in our best interest.
Yeah, and I would want to check with our events team, but I think they would probably object as well, Miles. But yeah, because they know sort of the science behind all the timing and how to have a successful event.
Yeah, I would say we're already late. Like we shouldn't be delaying this more.
Okay, I think that's great feedback to bring back.
Yeah.
So thank you all.
Any other questions, comments for Sarah on this front?
Okay.
If not, well, thanks for coming and sharing that information, and we'll move on to the next issue.
Thank you all.
Thanks. The next one is nominating James to rejoin the TSC. He's indicated he's available and wants to rejoin on start of May. I see that there's lots of support in the issue itself. I would say then, like, if people can add their plus ones in the chat. Let's see, how many people do we have there? I'm counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay, once everybody's finished, I'm just going to copy that and paste it in. And then afterwards, I will reconcile, but I think we have enough to proceed. So assuming that the numbers we're over the numbers, I will go ahead and open the PR to add James tomorrow back in. Okay. And I'll assume, unless anybody speaks up, that there's no objections so that we can move forward. Okay, the next issue is number 689, which is the TSC election, the elections for the TSC chair and the CPC representative. This is issue 689. The nominations closed on the 22nd based on the schedule that we had in the issue and agreed to. There were only 2 people who'd raised their hand for the positions, myself and Matteo. And given that there's 2 positions and two people, I suggested that we simply move forward with myself as chair and Matteo as the CPC representative. And there seems to be a reasonable amount of support. I think 7 people have commented so far in the issue. But I wanted to bring it up in this meeting as well to see if we can get either objections surfaced or confirmation from more people to push us over the sort of halfway mark in terms of panel of TSC members. So again, I guess anybody want to raise any objections or concerns with moving forward that way? If not, then again, if people could add their plus ones, and then I'll post them into the issue and we can just see if we're if we have covered a sufficient number of people to assume we can move forward. Yeah, Sam, the nominations closed on the 22nd, which was Monday. Okay, so let's see. I think okay, well, I'll see if that pushes us over. If not, I guess I'll follow up with other people. Anything else people want to discuss on that front? Okay, if not, let's go to the next issue on the agenda, which is the tracking issue for updating the TC on board meeting. So, Miles.
We have a board meeting scheduled for Friday. On the agenda right now from us is not too much. There's some stuff for the CPC charter and related stuff, but as far as I know, there is nothing explicit from the TSC. Let me just double check our tracking board and make sure that I'm not forgetting anything. Right now, we have nothing anywhere on there. Like, I guess one of the only things that needs to be done is the Google Season of Docs application, but that's more kind of like general. That's not really a board matter. That's more just like getting the foundation to get stuff done. If anyone has anything specific they think should be raised to the board, please let me know. I guess one thing that I could throw out there right now would be, I do plan to object to delaying the announcement of my brain stopped working. The announcement of the name and the stuff around our event, Node+JS Interactive, unless we have a really, really clear path to launching something that doesn't require delaying it. So I don't know if anyone has any concerns with that, but please let me know if you have concerns with that approach. Other than that, can't think of anything right now. Please ping me if you have questions. If the meeting gets delayed, it will be rescheduled to some point next week. Also, I guess it's worth letting people know, in case you didn't see it, we do have an open call for the executive director position. We have a recruiting firm that we're working with, and we have an open job posting on the openjs.org, jsf.org website. I'm doing a follow-up to figure out how many candidates we have right now, and I'll hopefully have more explicit, like what information I can share with us about how that search is going. For the sake of candidates, probably a lot of it needs to remain fairly confidential, but hopefully I'll have some meaningful statistics to give you an example of, the scale of applicants, how long we're expecting it to take, and stuff like that.
Okay, any questions or anything to Miles on that before we move on? Okay, if not, let's move on to the next issue, which is the strategic initiatives tracking issue. So let's take a look at that. And Miles, we'll start with modules.
Modules, 12 new modules landed, yay! There's a couple like really high level things that we're still working on right now. And like the main debates, one is around like how we'll do dual mode modules, or if we will. So like having a module that you can both import and require using the same specifier and have it just work. The high level bits that we kind of need to reach consensus on to move this forward is, is our recommendation that upgrading a module from CommonJS to ESM Semver major or not? That's kind of a pretty major one. Do we want to support dual entry? So do we want to make it possible to both import and require a module and have that potentially resolved to a different singleton? Do we want to try to support requiring ESM? This was something that we believed was not possible up until now due to specific hazards, but there are some members who think that it might be possible, and whether or not we want to keep the extension resolution. So for those of you who are not familiar, we dropped the default support for the Node.js file extension resolution algorithm in our ESM implementation right now, making it necessary to give full file paths when you're importing modules. That is not the case when you're importing bare specifiers for modules that you've installed by NPM. And we also have some proposals that we're working on to make it possible to do like specific exports from a package. But there's still questions about whether or not we want that to be, what we do moving forward. So, I'll keep you all updated as things move forward. If you have any explicit opinions about any of the things that I've just said, would be very happy to hear from you.
Okay, so next is NAPI. On that front, still, focuses on supporting adoption and working through some of the issues. We've spent the last couple meetings looking at some of the issues that were reported with async worker. And we're putting together a workshop that we hope to get accepted at, the main Node conferences. We saw a pretty good bump from NodeConf EU last year. I think those are the main things. Gabriel, you have anything else to add?
Nope, that sounds about right.
Okay. Next one is OpenSSL evolution. We don't have Rod, but I don't know if you have anything to say on that one, Sam.
About TLS?
Just that we had this OpenSSL evolution strategic initiative in terms of what we do going forward. If there's nothing new, you can just say that. But
yeah, nothing new since the update last week.
Okay. Workers and anything new on that front? No, Anna was on earlier, still on. I think we may have lost her, so we'll move on. Governance, Miles, we left that one on.
Sorry, Michael, did you just call on me there?
Yeah, I was just saying governance we left on. I know we discussed it briefly yesterday, but decided to leave it on the list.
Yeah, I think that the idea was that we will leave that on the list to follow up, and we will be able to close that once we update our charters as the TSC to reflect the changes in the OpenJS Foundation.
Right, okay. Yeah, I am planning to look at what we need to do in terms of the elections to match what we did and open a PR for that, but I haven't managed to get to it quite yet. But okay, so nothing really to discuss on that front, right? New stream APIs?
Yeah, there's no progress currently. Same as last time, basically. I'm still looking at progressing this in terms of libev, but I have not had time to allocate to that. And there's no progress on JS APIs and interaction with existing streams.
Okay. So next is V8 currency, but we don't have Michael. We don't have a lead. Sorry, going through. Open web standards, anything to be said on that front?
Nothing much more than what we've talked about so far. I think that there is definitely some work that we need to do as a foundation as a whole, not just as Node, figuring out like what is our relationship with ECMA and what is our relationship with W3C. That's kind of blocked right now on the forming of the CPC, but as things kind of evolve there, I'll keep people updated.
Okay. Python and 3 and JIP, I don't think we have Zachary Priyan. So
I want to just chime in something really quickly, though. I don't know if people saw that I believe it was posted on the doc for this issue. Maybe not. It was posted somewhere, but because Python 2 is getting end-of-lifed all over the place, like there's actual problems right now with just even installing Node via Homebrew because of our lack of support of Python 3. I think that this is something that we need to escalate our efforts on. There may be an ability for me to help find some people internally at Google with Python expertise to help on this, but we do need a little bit more than just like the single line like that we have at the moment. We need a little bit more context of like what's missing and what work needs to be done. And if that already exists, if someone can help me just find that to send to the right people, I can potentially get some people to help with the labor. But we really do need to prioritize this, or it's going to be a real pain for Node 12.
So have you gone through 642?
Which one?
642 is the one listed against that initiative.
Is that, let me just take a look really quickly.
Because I guess what I was going to suggest is, there might be some of the information you just asked for in there. If not, I would talk to Zachary Priyan as well as Klaus. He's been helping to push that as well. And I know there's various issues. I don't know them off the top of my head, though.
So the latest comment on there from Rod, the last sentence is someone's going to have to come up with a plan for what we do with 12 and Python 2.3. Hopefully it doesn't involve breaking changes. It does not sound like we have an explicit plan right now.
Yeah, there's more going on than what's in that issue. So I would talk to Zachary and Klaus because they've been actively pushing it. I've seen quite a few things like in the build working group and in Node and so forth. I'm not saying that it's well underhand. So certainly for 12, we weren't ready to drop 2. But I know they've been pushing on it, and I'm sure they would appreciate any additional help that they can get in terms of moving the pieces forward, because it seems like there's a lot that needs to happen.
All right, great, thank you.
So Python 3, okay. So and what was it you were pointing to? Do you have some you had some external problems? I think it would be good to somehow capture the links to those as well.
Rod commented about that in the issue that you pointed me towards. So that's where I got that information from.
Okay. So Miles, I'm just going to take a note then that says Miles may try to get some additional resources from Google to help out, right? Sounds good. Anything else you'd like to add on that front? Okay, I think that's all the ones that we have people here for today. So I'm going to flip back to looking at the rest of the agenda. So that's actually everything we had on the agenda. So let's take a quick look if there's anybody on the YouTube channel watching. If I can find that, YouTube. Okay, I don't see any comments there, so I think we can call it for today. Actually, the last thing I do want to bring up, though, is do we have any volunteers to chair next week? Because I'm away on vacation and won't be able to do it. I will take that silence as a no, but I will then, so I'll basically see if I can reach out to other people through the mailing list to see if anybody else can do it. Okay. Talk to everybody later. Thanks for taking the time to attend.
Talk to you all later. Bye.
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 Cheers, y'all.